Hello, welcome back to another episode of TNC Talks Nonprofit with Mercedes and Scott. We'd like to thank our sponsor today, Methodist Healthcare Ministries of South Texas, who has been our lead sponsor for the podcast series all year long. And we appreciate that support and for being along with us for the ride. And I'd like to have Mercedes now introduce our next guest.
Yes, today we have Tara Roussett with SJRC Texas or SJRC Belong.
Either one.
Okay, wonderful. Well, why don't you, before we start diving into your story, we'd love to hear how you got to be the CEO of SJRC. But before we launch into that story, why don't you tell us a little bit about the mission of SJRC Texas /Belong?
Sure.
And your vision, because you're sort of sharing with me. It's like, hold on, wait for the podcast. We'll hear about that in a second.
Yes. Lots of great stuff to talk about. Thank you both for having me here today. So at SJRC, we've really been through a journey over the last 40 years, kind of how we started to where we're at today. And everything has been intentional, but also organic at the same time. We started as your traditional residential foster care agency. We took care of really great care of kids. Through the years, we felt like we want to do more. We want to take care of the family. We want to be able to get these kids to permanency. Growing up in a residential facility, as great as it was, isn't something that we should strive for the kids in our community, right? And that's been a personal change of my own even. I've been there 17 years, and 17 years ago, I was very proud of kind of raising all the little children in the residential facility, but that's not who we are anymore. And we're glad about that. So over the years, we have grown into a thriving, full child and family well-being system. So we take care of we basically do what CPS used to do, Child Protective Services used to do. So the state in 2017, the state legislature changed the model of foster care in our state to community-based care. So it gave that local authority and decision-making back to the communities that the children are from. So since 2021, we still do the residential foster care. We still do child placing agency, CPA, not the finance CPA, the child placing agency CPA. We license homes in the community for foster care. We also have a prevention department, a full department of we want to get these children and families before they ever reach the system at all. It's called the child welfare system. We very intentionally, words matter, intentionally call it the child and family well-being system because that's what we're trying to do. So as much as we can reach kids and families before they even come into the system, as we know we're doing our job. Fast forward to 2021, now we've been taking care of the state will always do investigations and removals. But once a child is removed, we do everything. We do reunification, all of it.
And do you find to me, it sounds much better.
It is.
When that system changed, because it takes the state sort of like that cold.
Yes. It's
more experience away from them and back to.
Yes. It's more relational and built on trust with local partners, local communities. And then because we've been a provider for so long in this community, our provider partners who are the ones that say yes to our kids. Many of your membership works in partnership with us. And now in this contract, the money comes to us and then we pay them. And we're able to better the network of all of the surrounding nonprofits that are they're the ones that are doing the hardest job. They're saying yes to all the kids. So we're working in partnership with everybody there too. So our vision is that no child ever enters the system at all. Right. That no child ever experiences abuse and neglect. And now in this new role that we've been doing since 2021, we have been able to really get into our communities. And then I'll add on that. So September 1st of this year, we started the same contract that we've been doing in the 27 rural counties surrounding Bexar County. We started Bexar County. So now we have Bexar County as well.
Oh, so you never had Bexar County?
Not until September. We work in Bexar County.
Right.
We have an office in Bexar County. We license homes in Bexar County, but we didn't do this contract in Bexar County until right now, September 1st.
Congratulations.
One week today.
Wow. Yes. That's amazing. How many kiddos do you have in the residential?
By design, we have 12. We used to have 45, but now we only have 12. It is that what started us as the organization is now the tiniest dot of the work that we do. And those 12 kids are the hardest 12 kids in our community that don't have any other placement. And so we've really focused on high intensity, short term. Back when I said we used to kind of raise the kids, I always called them the cute kids on bikes, and we would raise them, and it was wonderful, and it made my heart, flutter. But that's just not the right thing to do anymore for kids. And so we have short term, get their highest needs met, and then get them to a long-term placement.
That's great.
That's great.
So Mercedes mentioned the name and what's behind
Yes.
The Texans.
So good story. How long do we have? I know, but I'll also
Then we'll get into your
That's
story.
right. Well, I actually can answer that pretty much at the same time, I think, to help a little bit.
I mean, you've been there for 17 years.
I've been there for 17 years. So I started in 2008, and we were St. Jude's Ranch for Children, Texas Region Inc. Our corporate offices were in Nevada. So we had a St. Jude's Ranch for Children, Nevada Region Inc., and then a St. Jude's Ranch for Children, Texas Region Inc. At that time, we had a location in Bulverde and then a location in New Braunfels. It was an emergency shelter and then our residential facility that I talked about. And all of our business operations were out of Nevada. I had been here, I ran the Texas program, so we never wrote a check out of Texas. Our HR was in Nevada. Everything was there, but we ran good programs. And so, as we all know, this community is so giving and so supportive. And a lot of our local philanthropic partners didn't love that everything was going to Nevada.
Yep.
And we were paying a pretty large management fee to Nevada. And really and truly, if you take all the junk away, we were only attached to Nevada by an org chart. We had our own separate 501c3 here. We had everything, but our org chart said we reported up to there. So we tried that for a while. It was a lot of square peg, round hole. And then fast forward to 2016. 2016 is when I became the CEO and when the name change all changed. We honestly and truly, at the push of Harvey Nation, and he knows this, and I thank him every single day, he was really the voice that said, like, y'all got to do something because we're giving to you, but it's going to Nevada, and we want the money to stay here. And he was right. Yeah. And so it was just little things like there's a 2-hour time difference between here and Nevada. Mm-hmm. So when Harvey wanted to have a meeting at 8 a.m. our time, well, they didn't know. They want to be on at 6 a.m. their time. Like, I'm tired, but nobody cared when it was 5 p.m. my time. It was 7 p.m. here, 5 p.m. there. So just little things like that, made it hard. And great people, but it just squared peg round hole. So in 2016, I was the regional director. I had started as residential coordinator, worked my way up to campus director in Bulverde. Then I became regional director over the New Braunfels and Bulverde campuses. And then I just decided with Harvey's support and push to go to the board and say, you know what? We need a chance to run on our own. We have the community here. We have support. Yes, we didn't have the business offices, but we could. I happened to also be going to school and getting my MBA at that time. So I was literally at night learning what I would go the next day to work and do. And so the board said, okay, we'll give you a chance. And again, with the support of this community. And so the board voted in May of 2016 that effective July 1 of 2016, that I would be the CEO and we were completely splitting operations. So at that time, we became SJRC Texas. And it was we had conversations about, do we just want to completely change the name? SJRC stands for nothing, legally stands for nothing. But there was a lot of confusion with St. Jude's. And are you the cancer hospital? Yes. Are you not? Uh-huh. We weren't. We were spending more time saying who we weren't than who we were. And so we voted to say SJRC Texas Inc. So for a couple of reasons. One, for people who had given to us because of what our history was and our name was, we didn't want to go too far away. Sure. And so we went, but at the time I was really pushing and I lost, and that's okay. We have a disagree and commit as our theory around our organization. So I disagreed and committed to the new way forward, but I was really thinking, let's do one strong name. Like, what is one boom name that when they hear that organization, that name, they know. Right. And it was just too soon at the time. It was just, we still were trying to kind of ties to the past and move to the forward. Yes.
And you probably weren't doing all the programming at the time that you were.
We weren't. So then so that was 2016. I became the CEO. 2020, we added the prevention department that I mentioned. And then in 2021, when we got the state contract to run community-based care, that's where we got the Belong name. So Belong then pretty much took over. So at that time we had 70-ish staff. When I started, we had about 30 staff. Then we had about 70 staff. And then when we added Belong up to right now, we're at 377 staff. Goodness. So, and then we're about to add about 300 more. So by next year at this time, we'll probably have about 800 staff.
That's really
yes. And so Belong then it was like, okay, well, people would say, well, I work for Belong. Well, you don't, because SJRC Texas is who signs your checks, right? So then it just kind of morphed into SJRC Belong. We have some identity crisis over here. We go by a lot of different names.
It's a revolution.
Yes. So does that answer that kind of how that?
Yes. Wow. Well, so how did you get into this work in the first place?
So that's also a great question.
What we always say on this show is, many times people don't wake up when they're 17, 18 years old and say, oh, I want to work in a nonprofit.
Right. No, definitely not me. And a lot of people in our field in the child and family well-being system maybe even had experience in the system when growing up. And I did not either. Okay. I grew up in a household of mom and dad that I love and adore, and still to this day love and adore. And they were fantastic parents. So I can never say I understand what our kids went through because I did not go through that. Yes.
With a lot of our members.
Yeah.
They had issues and they've gone through,
right.
recovery, and now they're running an organization.
Yeah, a lot of times there's a tie to the past.
Yeah,
but not for you.
Not for me. My tie, and the reason I got into this work is I went to Judson High School, and Boysville was right across the street from me. And my friends lived in Boysville, and they were just my friends. They weren't the kids living in the shelter across the street, right? And so we did our project graduation at Boysville, and I had this interest in what's going, that's not a world I know at all. Like, what's going on over there? I was smart enough to know, not that smart, but smart enough to know that a life in nonprofit probably wouldn't be very lucrative for me. So I went ahead.
Oh, you're really thinking ahead.
Yeah.
Most of us are after the fact, wait a second.
Well, really, I also didn't want to work lots of late night shifts because I saw that, it's 24/7,
sure.
So I went to UTSA and I got my undergraduate in interdisciplinary studies, and I was a teacher. So I was a teacher for a few years and loved that. But I always had that, I always remember what was going on over there. Also, while I was at UTSA going to become a teacher, I worked direct care at Roy Moss Youth Alternatives. And so I worked in Bernie, and I would drive to UTSA and the overnight shifts, direct services. And I just loved, there was just something about that population of kids that I just loved so much. And so I worked at Youth Alternatives, did all of that. In fact, I've been married 27 years. And when I got married 27 years ago, two cool things. The girls that I took care of at Roy Moss were at my wedding, in my wedding. And then some of the staff that are still at Roy Moss today were there at my wedding 27 years ago. That tells how great that organization is as well, right? And so I always have a special place in my heart
was
for
Bill
for
the
that
CEO?
work. No, Bill wasn't. It was before Bill.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, it was.
I don't know his story, so I guess.
Yeah. It was well before Bill, and then now Blair's there, and we're great friends. But some of the other staff are still there, which
that's crazy.
That's awesome.
Yes.
So anyway, so I did that, and then I was a teacher, and then I decided to be a stay-at-home mom, and I thought that's what I was going to do forever. I was going to be a stay-at-home mom. My son was 5, and my daughter 4, and my daughter was almost 2, just about turning 2 when I went back to work person I worked with at Roy Moss was the director at St. Jude's Ranch for Children at the time. We had worked together, and he reached out and he said, Tara, why don't you come work and help me run the girls' houses? And I was like, I stay home and I got my son in preschool and I have to pick him up. And he was like, I'll work around your schedule. Just come and help me out.
Sounds familiar.
That's a very
Did I ever think I would be the CEO nor plan on that? Absolutely not. That was never a goal for myself. Ever.
No.
Little did I know. And then fast forward, I got there and I loved it and I worked my way up. And then, as I mentioned, I got my MBA because I felt like I was around. I'm a social worker by heart. I was around some of these social workers, but running a nonprofit is a business.
Thank you.
Because we had everything in Nevada. When we switched in 2016,
it was probably kind of eye-opening and probably a little bit of a drinking from a fire hose.
It was,
sure.
And we'd never written a check out of our office in San Antonio ever. Everything was out of there. I hired my CFO. She's still with us today from 2016. She's still here. And I literally gave her, and she'll tell you this story herself, I literally gave her 2 pieces of paper with some numbers on it. I was like, start a system. Good luck. And I told the staff at the time, y'all, I was so honest with them. I told the staff at the time, I don't know if I can pay you in 2 weeks, but trust me, and because we'd never done that before, but we did. And they trusted me. And a lot of them are still with us today. We have this very funny way. We do every month, we do our anniversaries, and they're listed out, and we've got this side, and maybe there's 15, 20, 25. Don't quote me exactly. People that have been there 10 and 15 years and up. And then this nothingness in the middle, there's nothing. And then we've got 1 to 3 years over here. So it's it's just this weird,
because y'all are growing.
We're growing so fast. So we've got these people that have been here the whole time, and then nothing in the middle. And then the ones that have been there now since 2021.
I mean, how do you hire 300 people? How do you staff up
that? So really a couple things happened that really helped us. One, because the work that we're doing was state work before, a lot of the state workers came over to us.
That makes sense.
And it was a huge transition because they didn't apply to work for us. They didn't say they wanted to come work for a nonprofit. They applied to work for the state. And then, we needed them. We couldn't do that job without them.
Yeah.
There was a time that I could say, honestly and truly, that I had done every position in the organization. I can no longer say that. I wasn't a caseworker. I didn't do that work. And so we had that kind of already a pocket of people coming over. But the really hard part was, come over. We need you, but we need you to do it different. We need you, like this legislature didn't put this work out to do the same thing.
Right.
And so that was
Have a mindset
really
change.
a mindset change. And it
how
was
the
hard.
pay? Was there a pay difference?
So we were able to match salaries, but we are a nonprofit, so we don't have the same benefits as the state has. And so there was a lot of struggle with that as well. And so we tried to set the staff up to talk directly to our broker so they'd understand what it actually meant to them on Friday when they got paid, what the difference was going to be, what their benefits were going to be. And so we're so grateful that so many had chosen to come over to us. And then kind of fast forward to now, we've started stage 1 of community-based care in Bexar County. And so we had about 3 weeks ago, we had 2 separate days of staff panels. That was staff that worked at the state before and have been working with us since 21 and kind of told about that transition to the Bexar County staff audience because we want them to come over and we can't do the work without them.
Sure.
So that's how.
The staff is local?
Pretty
When you
much.
say state,
Yeah.
they're still
Pretty much
local
there are
offices.
local offices here. Now we're in 27 counties. So we go from Victoria, we go up to Kerrville and Fredericksburg, down to Atascosa County, kind of all around the South Central and Hill Country region. And then Bexar County is literally right in the middle of all of it.
Wow.
And then we have what I lovingly call those from the wild. So we have like our own nonprofit staff, and then we have the state staff, and then we have the ones from the wild that joined us. And these are people who just decided, they see we're a thriving, growing organization. They may want to do something different. And data, like we never had a data team before. So I got most of our data staff were from the wild and joined us from corporations or maybe other nonprofits. We have IT team. We've got
Well, yeah, with
a lot of
employees, you
Yes.
kind of needed
And
someone.
how did the financials, like the cash that
He wants to know about the cash.
I know, it's like Nevada. Well, they had your bank account?
They did. Yeah. So they had our bank account. We opened a bank account here. We break with Frost, and they've been really great with us. And we helped that we had a board member from Frost at the time on our board. And so, there was that trusted relationship there. Like, we know these people that are here, right? And you hear all the time, people give to people. Or you also hear people don't quit organizations, they quit bosses. So I just really believe that those individual relationships matter so much. And when you've been here and you're when I had to call all of our partners that fund us and say guess what? We're splitting from the national organization. They're like, yeah, but your team's staying, right? You're going to be there? Yes, we're going to be there. And so they were on board. It's kind of the same thing with that. So the way we did our transition service agreement when we moved from Nevada was, if there was in perpetuity, if there was any donations or anything that came from Texas, and if it got in the bank in Nevada, it came back to us. We did give up all the other 49 states. So but there wasn't that big of a deal because there wasn't a whole lot. But if there was anything from any other state around except for Texas, they got to keep it. And so we kind of wrote that in perpetuity on that. And then there's been times that they'll get a check or we'll get a check. We're like, and we still are in, friendly, no business.
Yeah, I was curious about the breakup.
But,
It sounds like it wasn't dramatic.
It really wasn't. Again, it's, good relationships and
Right.
We worked it through and got attorneys and did stuff that, they told me to do, and we signed and we did. But the hardest part was that May to July 1. And it was
It's short term.
Yes, and I know that I hope Harvey listens and he has the same memory as me because this is what happened. Yes, this is what happened, and I thank Harvey every day. So he was the one that really, like I said, really pushed us, and he had told me, he called us into his office right before we split, and he said, "My board voted to give you this money for your organization." He said, "But I'm not giving it to you." He said because he said some words, which basically about how the organization wasn't going to survive. And he was right. And I listened to him and I said, "Harvey, you're right." I said, "So much so that here's where we're at in the organization. I have brought forward to the board to give us a chance to split from that organization and see if we can make it work here ourselves." And he goes, "When's your fiscal year start?" This is May. And I said, July 1st. And he looks at the calendar. It was like, I don't know, 30, 60 days, whatever it was, 60, 90 days. He goes, "Okay, I give you the X amount of days to get this done. And if you come back to me July 1 and this year split happened and you're on your own, I'll give you your check. And so that was it. So we brought it to the board and the board was like, okay, I think we can do it. And I said, like, I don't need to be the CEO. I don't even want that, right? I don't want that. And then they were very kind and were basically like, well, if you're not going to be the CEO, then we're not going to do it. And I was like, okay, fine. And so we did. And the rest, and I went back to Harvey after in that July and I said, we did it. Here's our transition service agreement. Can I have my check? And then since then, he has just been such an amazing partner. We have our educational center has his name on it. We have the Harvey House. He's really been such a proponent for community-based care and the success of that growing. And
he just has that business.
Right. He's such a business sense.
When he speaks,
yes,
you listen.
And we listened. And so that's how kind of we got the bank account, did all of that. And then when I told people, I don't know if I can pay you in 2 weeks, we did. We've never missed 1 cent. So
that's good news.
Yes. So it's been a journey, man.
And you may or may not be able to answer this question, but there's been a lot of chatter going around in the sector about mergers and acquisitions. Mm-hmm. Is there any possibility that might be happening in y'all's world in the future with your growth?
Yeah. So I think right now we're pretty solid, but we did have those conversations even before we did the split in 2016. We were talking to some of our partners, in fact, 2 strong partners in the area. We got pretty close to maybe doing a merger or acquisition with them, and we didn't at the end of the day. Neither one of them happened, and I think it didn't happen for the reason that we're here today. But in hindsight, how do you don't know that? I do also think in our sector, we try not to get too much in the weeds, but we're funding foster care. The funding model is changing. We were funded on the 1980s model. Now we have a new, now we have a new way the state is funding foster organizations called T3C, Texas Child Centered Care. T3C is very robust and it's going to be great when it fully integrates, but it is a lot. And a lot of the smaller nonprofits that are doing this work just don't have the infrastructure to do that. Right. So we've been talking to them about merging to see if if there's a way to have economies of scale in all of that. And so, but a lot of people have the founders and they're still there and it's hard, but I always think that there's an advantage. I don't know what the actual term is of the opposite of a merger and acquisition, but that's what we did. We split apart. Like instead of, that was in 2016, we did the opposite.
You went rogue.
We unmergered. I know what we did.
And I think there's even, for
divorced.
The non-profity term of mergers and acquisitions, like strategic partnerships.
Yes.
Alignment.
Well, that's just trying to soften.
I know.
What's the actual thing that's happening.
Come on.
But that's what nonprofits do.
Nonprofits is very nonprofit.
Well, and you also, for nonprofits, you don't want to reinvent the wheel. And I think there is enough work for everybody. So I think it's like figuring out as individual organizations, if there's not in a merger, I don't know why I can't use that word, but if there's not going to be a merger, then just focusing on the strengths of each one and then collaborating
exactly.
together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Lots to think about.
That's quite the story and quite the history.
There's a lot there.
Yeah.
I can see you being a teacher too.
I taught second grade.
I was a pre-K teacher.
Oh,
yeah.
That's so fun.
I know. It was fun. I miss a little. I've been dressing up as Pepper for Big Give. And sorry, I know by the time this airs, Big Give will probably have come and gone for 2025, but you guys do great during the Big Give. And so I thought, I have to wear my shirt. But I was, we visited a school last week where I put on our mascot, the Pepper costume, and Cynthia has seen me in that costume as well.
So fun.
But I couldn't see the kids. They're all like below my sign
on them.
I know, they're so cute. It made me miss being I hadn't been in a school in a long time, like a little children's school. So
I know when I walk into schools, I'm like, oh, I love it here.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. And
thank you for having me and letting me share the story. It's not something we talk about a lot, but especially my own personal story, I don't share a whole lot, but I think it really goes to what our organization is. We, again, I didn't want to be the CEO. I'd never planned that, but like you see a need, you meet the need. If not me, then who? And that's the same as our organization. If not us, then who?
And I think that's just nonprofits in general.
That's right. It's what we do. We're scrappy, man.
We're scrappy. You see a need, you fill it.
Yes.
That's just the way we roll.
Yeah. And there's no other community that I would feel. I mean, I grew up here. These are my people. Mm-hmm. And like just that there. And I don't just say that because I grew up here, but there was just something special about the San Antonio and surrounding communities. Like everybody knows everybody. Mm-hmm. It's hard work, But I just pick up the phone and call people, and then I'm like, what can I do to help? Like literally,
Just
what
the
can I do to help?
relationships that
It's
you've
just the
built.
relationships. And there's no other community that I think is better than ours.
I would agree with that.
Well, thank you again very
Yes,
much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And we hope to see you next time on TNC Talks Nonprofit. I'm Scott.
Mercedes.
And thank you again to Methodist Healthcare Ministries of South Texas for supporting our work here.